I know people are afraid of this word, lawyers, hourly rates, but it's not necessarily so.
First of all, right, what is trademark?
Trademark is basically the identity that a person puts out for their goods and services. Trademarks and other types of IP also can generate revenue for you. So it's not just as insurance. So you could actually use your trademark for licensing purposes. If you're so famous and you feel that someone using the same name on, say Coca-Cola, if someone starts selling toilet roll using the name Coca-Cola, they're going to say, wait a minute, you have to stop.
Sorry, you lost me for a moment because when we were talking about Coca-Cola toilet paper, I was already thinking, what would it feel like?
No, do you know what I mean?
It could be fizzy, which could be interesting, but sorry, I digress. Why would it mean something to me when right now I don't exactly have a brand for myself? So why should I trademark something?
So the simple answer is...
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Epic Podcast with me, Edric, Poon and company, and we are going to be talking about trademark law. This week we have in studio, well, not exactly in studio, but in this room, we've got Kiran with us. So
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining this podcast. I'm very excited for you to be here.
Thanks, Edric. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
No, it's kind of crazy because we were talking about this over coffee and the extreme importance that you've put almost, borderline crusader-ish, on being a trademark lawyer.
My name's Kiran. Full name is actually Kiranjit, but I go by Kiran. And my company is Seiter IP Consultants, LLP. We've been established since 2013, so it's been 10 years. So pretty happy about that. Our focus mainly is on trademark law, but we also do other types of IP.
Okay, so there's a difference between trademark law and IP.
It's a subset of IP, which is intellectual property. So there are actually 5 major types of IP: patents, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets. Those are the end designs. So trademark is like a subset of that. And it's just by chance that I'm focusing my work mainly on trademarks. It's just how I was trained. So, but I do other aspects of IP too.
Okay, so I'm the village idiot here. Right, as always. Now, trademark law. First of all, right, what is trademark? To me, it's always been like, is it something like that is basically a TM, right? What we've always seen growing up. But does that protect your IP, or does that protect just maybe a model or a name or a logo? Yeah. So help me understand exactly, right? Or give me a crash course on what this is.
Sure. Trademark is basically the identity that a person puts out for their goods and services that they are offering to the public. So it could be a name, it could be a symbol, it could be a logo, it could be even a slogan. So for example, if you take a famous brand like Apple, so they have a few different trademarks, one Apple being one of them, the name, and then the logo is a separate trademark. So they apply these trademarks on their different goods and services, and it forms part of the company's identity. So it is important for any business to protect their identity. You don't want it to be stolen or to be used by someone in a way that causes damage to that reputation and identity. So for that reason, it is important to make sure that you take steps to try to protect yourself or in your business.
Okay, so this is kind of like IP insurance.
In a way, yes. It's something that it's good to have. Hope that you don't have to rely on it in order to defend yourself. But yes, it is a form of insurance, or it's like any other legal aspect of your business. Have your contracts in place, have your IP secured. Trademarks and other types of IP also can generate revenue for you. So it's not just as insurance. So you could actually use your trademark for licensing purposes. For example, Coca-Cola's brand value is so high that they could depend on just their brand to get a loan or investment because of the value of the brand that it's accumulated over the years, the goodwill, the reputation. So it's not just an insurance per se, it also can be an asset.
when we talked about iPhone just now, or Apple, right? You said that they have multiple trademarks. So in this case, right, they were trademarking, let's say, the iPhone, I would assume, but they can't trademark a mobile phone.
They trademark the name. So for example, iPad, iPhone, right? These names, these words, they are most likely trademarked in different countries. So if you were to, they've also, I understand, tried to go after anyone who uses something with the word letter I, and something next to it, because it evokes Apple, So if the consumer would assume, oh, this must be an extension of Apple's brand, then Apple would likely stop them. Like, for example, what kind of example? For example. And if it's used for a mobile phone or a computer or a laptop, for example, so they probably would not go for that. They would try to stop that person from getting rights to that.
Okay.
It's like the Big Mac, and I think there was some conflict with McDonald's too. Some people trying to do, different variations of using the MC symbol, right, or word. So when you're known for something, you want to stop. Or I'll give you another example, Budweiser, right?
Not the most recent one, please.
They are very litigious with regards to anyone who's using the term Bud.
Bud, right.
Right. So because they would think, for them, consumers associate the word Bud with their products. So that may or may not be the case, right? It's not 100%, but they would still want to try to stop a person who comes up with a trademark using the word Bud.
In a case like this, right, again, it's about protecting your name, or at least the product name, and that particular asset, and potentially, right, the value that it brings as well.
Correct.
In terms of how people remember it, how people refer to it, right,
Correct.
or maybe even reminisce.
Yeah.
So in the case of small businesses, now this is where it gets really tricky for us, right? I mean, we're small business owners ourselves. Why would it mean something to me when right now, well, allegedly or supposedly, I don't exactly have a brand for myself? So why should I trademark something?
Well, that's because, okay, so the simple answer is we got to see what it could be in the future. Airbnb, Uber, they all came up from very small places and they went up slowly. So if they had the similar mindset, like, I'm a small business, it doesn't really matter, then someone could come in and could have taken that brand name first, or, could have copied something similar. And then it might have been too late for them to start trying to protect that name or that brand. And so for that reason, it's not so much about now. It's also about the future. We all start out small, but we don't want to stay small. Not necessarily. We're hoping to generate a lot of clients. We're hoping to generate a good name for ourselves, build on our brand. You don't want to start looking at protecting that brand that you built 2 or 3 years or 4 years down the line, as opposed to earlier on, when there is a potential for someone else to swoop in, take all the hard work that you've achieved over the past 3 to 5 years in building your brand, and then taking it, using that similar name or the same name, and generating products that are lower quality or offering services that are very much inferior to you. And then your customers associate that company with you. And what happens is then they think, well, if it's lower quality or inferior, it affects your business. So what happens is you lose customers. You end up, people start questioning the quality of your services, the quality of your products. It's not even you. Why it's important is not because of where you are today, but where you could be in the future. And you also have to be mindful whenever you come up with a brand or you decide to choose a particular name. You have to pay attention to whether someone's already using that out there. Because they may not be aware of you, and today you don't face any problems. But if you grow bigger and become more popular, and they become aware of you and they realize, wait a minute, this company is actually doing something similar as us, we're not going to have that. And you never did anything to protect yourself, especially in your country, you could face some sort of legal dispute.
Right. about some examples, right? Earlier on, we were talking about iCook. We were talking about Apple and stuff. Now, imagine, so just to put things into perspective, right? If let's say, for example, the Big Mac, like what we talked about, was not trademarked, what would that mean if, let's say, McDonald's started making Big Macs? You know, they're doing millions and millions a day, but they didn't have trademark protection. What could somebody do, even though they have 10 years or 15 years of legacy, right, selling that burger? And if, let's say, for example, one day they say, I've been selling burgers 6 months and I'm registering the Big Mac.
Yeah, that's a good question. So with IP, everything is territorial. So your rights depend on where you've protected them. Okay. And so if, for example, Big Mac has been used outside of Singapore for a long time, known in those different jurisdictions, but it's not known in Singapore, right? And they never protected themselves in Singapore. Then, and I come along and I file Big Mac, right? And I have a registration, right? And I start using it first, and people start associating Big Mac with me. Then I could defend myself and say, well, I've been using this here. Yes, you have rights overseas, but you didn't protect them in Singapore. Singapore is unique because Singapore does recognize rights based on use. There are countries like the US and Singapore and Malaysia, certain Commonwealth countries, that recognizes a proprietor who's been using a trademark for a long time but never really registered it. Those are called unregistered rights. So on some level, you can try to protect yourself or pursue some sort of action or defend yourself based on those rights. But a lot of countries, they are on first to file basis, meaning whoever comes in with a registration or filing first has the rights. So you could be using for many, many years in, say, Singapore, but in China, someone else files that first, or registered your trademark first. It is going to be really difficult to try to challenge them. There are ways to do it, but it's difficult.
Back to that example, right? If let's say, for example, this person has been selling the Big Mac for 10 years and I've only been doing it 6 months and I register it, what are the reparations then meant for me? What could I get from this? Because we've got this idea, right, that when we will sue as a countermeasure, but this on the other hand, right, becomes something that is proactive, that you could actually sue them for something. How does that work?
Well, if they don't come into your territory,
assuming it's the same territory.
If they come into your territory and you have a registration, it's not pending, then you could take some legal action against them. But if your rights are still pending, right, you could go based on unregistered rights, based on how long you've been using. 6 months usually is not long enough to establish that you've developed this really great goodwill or people know you for a long time. It's difficult to succeed typically on such a low time frame of use. But if it's been a long time, now they can claim. I'll give you an example. Super Bowl, for example, is really famous in the States. You know, they are really popular. Whereas in Singapore, I don't know whether they're still around, but there was a bowling alley called Super Bowl.
Oh, yes, right? yes. I used to go there as a kid, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. I think I did too. So it's the same terms, right? But as Singaporeans, we know Super Bowl to be something else as what the Americans would think. So then if you're the big American, would you feel like the Super Bowl here, which is also some sort of a sporting arena, is actually going to kind of eat into your business, or consumers are going to think, hey, man, you know, they get confused and they're going to tarnish the reputation of the American Super Bowl? Not likely, because it's, you know, we know it as something different. So it also goes down to how you're using your name or your trademark, right? If you're using, you know, your brand on snacks or drinks, whereas another person starts selling cosmetics for using the same name, then do you think, I mean, you have to ask yourself, well, you know, are people really going to be confused, or it's totally different, it's totally fine. So that's how I approach it with companies who come to me and say, like, you know, what should I do? Should I actually sue them? And I say, well, does it affect your business? If the answer is no, then potentially not. If it dilutes your brand, if you're so famous and you feel that someone using the same name on, say Coca-Cola, if someone starts selling toilet roll using the name Coca-Cola, they're gonna say, wait a minute, you have to stop, because it dilutes my brand.
Yeah.
It's not, the kind of product you're using the name on could tarnish or lower the brand value in that sense.
Sorry, you lost me for a moment, because when we were talking about Coca-Cola toilet paper, I was already thinking, what would it feel like?
No, do you know what I mean?
It could be fizzy, which could be interesting. But sorry, I digress.
As in the
I'm
name
sorry.
itself, the name.
Yeah. The typeface does flow a bit like toilet paper.
There's tarnishment issues and dilution issues for famous marks.
That is true, because toilet paper would sell like hotcakes. For real, Coca-Cola toilet paper, that is an awesome idea.
I'm just giving you an example. It has to how if someone uses your name brand in the wrong way, even if it's not in your industry.
It's true. Very true.
You should do something about it.
Now, this brings us to the next point. I found absolutely fascinating when we were talking about this. What goes into a name and what is applicable for trademark? Because you can't use something that's already so-called in the dictionary as common word as a trademark. Yeah. So, for example, if Paris Hilton, I mean, this was way back then, right? Yeah. Paris Hilton was trying to trademark the phrase, that's hot. But, that's on every cup of coffee, hot. That's on whatever. You can't trademark the name hot. Could you?
So it depends, again, goes back to your products and services. So the example I gave you was Apple for phones and Apple for fruit shops, right? So the idea is your trademark should not be so generic or commonly used such that you monopolize those terms, or even a slogan, and you exclude others in the same industry from using those terms. So if you're a fruit seller, you should be allowed to use the term Apple. But because Apple is using that brand on a phone, one has nothing to do with the other. It is deemed as a distinctive or unique brand. So that's hot. Now that's hot for drinks. All right. It's something that other retailers in the coffee and tea industry should be allowed to use, right? That's hot as a slogan for Paris Hilton to depict, her persona. It's totally different, right? So is the word that's hot, it's a slogan that's hot, commonly used to identify someone in her case, in something in a similar scenario? Probably not. Like Nike, just do it. Right? I mean, it's quite unique in the sense that do what, right?
Right.
But over time, it's developed its own reputation. Right? Happy Meal for McDonald's. Now, that's actually it's not exactly the most unique phrasing, right? But it becomes synonymous with them. So even if it's something that is very descriptive or generic, over time, if you use it long enough, that, I'm loving it. You immediately know whose brand slogan is that, because they've been using it so long. But in general, the idea is, it's not okay to monopolize on words that others in the same industry should be allowed to use, like skin friendly for cosmetics. If someone has the rights to skin friendly, you can't use that for any of your products, because every time you do, that person is going to sue you for trademark infringement.
Okay.
You see?
Okay. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to get a couple of quick tips on how we can assess whether we should be doing our trademarking real soon, and what are the things we should take a look into. We'll be right back. We're back. Just to let you guys in on the little joke that we were talking about during the break, was that we were concerned that that basically Coca-Cola is going to come after us because we talked about their brand making toilet paper. So, well, if anything, it is a case study. So I think by and large we should be safe, right, legally, by saying this, allegedly.
I hope so.
The word allegedly is so powerful in law. Somehow or rather. What should small business owners, or in fact medium-sized or even large ones, if they haven't even done their audits? Okay, so let's call this a trademark audit. How does one start this process? Apart from calling you first, of course.
Well, I think if you're a business, I think when you are starting out, if you're in Singapore, you try to figure out what name you want to call your company, right? And then you register in ACRA. A lot of times people think that's it. ACRA approved it. Yay, I'm fine. People can't follow or copy me. That's not true. So trademark registration is totally different from ACRA. It's totally different government body. So I think you have to ask yourself, if you're doing a product business, right? You have options. You can use the same company name to identify all your products. Or you can come up with your own different, separate brand name. If you're not familiar with trademarks, it's going to be difficult to actually know where to start, because most companies would find or try to use a name that describes what they do or what they're selling. Okay, best coffee or best shoe or whatever it could be.
There is a best coffee, isn't there?
There is.
Sorry, no, just bring it up. That's all, for case study.
Exactly. Okay? So the chances are, you'd come up with a name that you think, hey, I want people to know what I'm selling. So it's easy for them to find me. But in the trademark world, that's the worst thing you can do. Because, like I said earlier, the more descriptive or generic the term or slogans are really hard to get as well, then the chances of you getting monopoly or registration on that term is going to be hard, unless you've been using it for years and years and people know you as that. So I give you an example. I've asked a friend of mine recently, there's a brand in the States called Avocado. Can you guess what they sell?
I hope it's not avocados. No. That's for sure.
They sell mattresses.
Avocado mattresses?
Green avocado mattresses.
It must be squishy though. Never mind.
Yeah, but it's interesting to me that they picked that name, right? Has nothing to do with mattresses. But that is what will get you through the door in terms of registration. So it's going to be difficult to try to figure this out on your own, even with all the resources at IPOS and things like that. So, and brand consultants, I would say, not everyone is aware of what are the requirements to get yourself through to registration if you were to file your trademark. So I've seen cases where people invest thousands of dollars on branding, brand consultants, and when they try to register it, it's a no-go, unfortunately. So back to the drawing board. So pharmaceutical drugs, for example, okay, Panadol.
Mm-hmm.
We know Panadol as paracetamol. So the generic name is paracetamol,
mm-hmm.
right? But you have so many types of brand names for paracetamol, Panadol, Advil, Tylenol.
Yeah.
See? So it's the same component, right? But you can't use paracetamol. So businesses need to understand that when they are thinking of what brand name I should use for my products or services. Okay? So I would try to figure out and go and see someone about it, especially if you're concerned or you are really building a business for the future, not just a let's see how it goes kind of thing, But if you are not convinced and still want to use a descriptive term, then go ahead, because like I said, at least in Singapore, the longer and more you use it, you could get rights based on how people have identified you, over the years. So yeah.
Okay, so the first step is to really check in what's in the name,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it affect anybody or anything?
Mm-hmm.
And does it fit any descriptor or
mm-hmm.
non-descriptor?
Mm-hmm.
So after we do that,
mm-hmm.
then what should we do? Like, how do you assess, whether is it worth it to do a trademark?
Yeah, like I said, so I always ask the questions. I do ask these questions of my clients, especially Singapore small businesses. Why are you doing this? What is your aim? Some of them know the answer, some of them not really. So I then give them a little bit of a nudge. Is it because you're worried you get sued? Is it because you want to make sure that if someone tries to copy your brand, you are able to then take action? Both?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it to generate revenue? What is it? Because you get licensing opportunities, right? You can do franchises. You can do licensing deals. You can even sell your business after a while, and an investor probably, or the person buying probably ask about your rights. Is it protected? So it's very important to know your why. And if it's all of this, then good. At least you know the direction you want to take with your trademark or your IP. So, but I don't think people ask this question, because if they did, then you find a lot more people, especially small businesses in Singapore, taking time to invest in their trademark.
Right. And you use the word invest because it doesn't come cheap, like what you're mentioning, because there are a few different things. Would you be able to expound on this a little bit more?
So, trademark itself, the cost depends on something called classes. So the classes are literally the category of goods or services, and there are 45 of these classes. Okay. So each class represents a different group of goods or services. For example, cosmetics is class 3, computer software, computer products, class 9. 25 is for t-shirts or clothing goods. Jewelry is class 14. 35 is retail.
Now you're just showing off.
So there's a lot. We've memorized this as an IP professional. I mean, seriously. I mean, initially when I started, I was like, how the hell do you remember all this? But now it's like off the top of my head. So each class, you pay your fees based on each class. So if you're a small business and you run a clothing business, right? So if it's just purely clothing, you don't have a retail store or a website selling this, then it's just one class. But if you're having a retail website where people can order your products, so that becomes 2 classes. So you got your goods and you got your retail. So someone like Starbucks, they probably have multiple classes because they're offering cafes, coffee, tea, they're selling mugs, they're selling t-shirts.
So multiple classes mean multiple
each
purchases.
Yes, multiple classes means different goods and services under that one brand. Okay. So if you want to protect your brand for everything you're offering, you could go from anywhere between 1 class to 5 classes. So the higher the number of classes, the more the fees. So that's why it gets costly and it adds up. But I always tell clients, don't worry. You can do things in phases. You don't have to file all 5 today. If your core business is retail, then just do your retail class. Then do the other classes subsequently, maybe in 6 months. Have a plan, and that'll help. And budget plan, and also your trademark plan strategy. So that way you don't feel overwhelmed, and don't, like I said before, it's territorial. So if you're expanding overseas,
so you gotta buy.
It's the same.
You got to make that purchase. Well, I keep using the word buy because is it really buying or file?
It's filing.
Okay, so you got to file for it, but you still got to pay to file it.
So you file based on classes.
You file based on classes.
Yes.
You got to file it based on territory as well. And then you also had the IP side of things. Yeah,
so the trademark, so you can file in Singapore for 5 classes. But if you're not really doing all of those same goods and services in, say, Malaysia, you just file for what you're doing, right? Which is, so there has to be some planning and strategy within your own business. You have to not just see where you are going to be in 6 months, but where you're going to see yourself in the next 2 years, 3 years. Because when you file a trademark, you're not just doing it today, but you also are doing it in anticipation of what else your business is going to venture into. So if you're only doing t-shirts today, but you foresee yourself going into jewelry, or you foresee yourself going to snacks, right? Like it's a real possibility. Then you want to file your trademark in the relevant classes that covers these goods.
Wow.
Because you don't want to keep filing trademarks every now and then, right? You could, but it just means at the end of the period, you're going to have like 5-6 trademark applications to keep track of, because you have to renew these after 10 years. So it's really important to strategize where your business might be. For example, your business today, right? Say you start developing and start selling, some sort of merchandise, right? mini Edrics,
Okay.
bobbleheads.
Right. Okay.
Right. You sell these and, they make a lot of money for you because you become a famous person,
Bobblehead.
right? You want to file your trademark, not just for your services, but also for these items, the merchandise that you're selling. Right. So it's a question of, do you foresee yourself even going there? If you're not, then forget it. But if you do, then you might want to consider filing it upfront. But if cost is prohibitive, then have it in your plan and you do it when the time is right. Even for your expansion plans overseas.
Right. So if you want to see Edric bobbleheads, drop me a text or leave me a comment or something.
Not?
I mean, I've never thought about doing merch. Maybe T-shirts eventually, but we'll see how that goes, right? So we're back. Now, you are super passionate about IPs and trademark. Now, lawyers, I hear people want to do criminal law, be prosecutors, be this and that, and well, that seems to be like, the sports car. That's like, the Ferraris of law. But in your case, well,
I went to IP.
Yeah. So what would you consider that? Is that like the Ferrari of law, or is that like the Hyundai Sonata of law? I don't know.
I think it's I think you're like maybe a Toyota. It's comfortable, easy, not that expensive. For me, IP, when I was studying my law in law school, it was one of the subjects I excelled at because it was just so easy to understand. With criminal law, with evidence law, with corporate law, if you look at just the statutes themselves, it's like massive. Some of them are so thick. And so I don't know. I just started gravitating towards IP for some weird reason. But I never started out as an IP lawyer.
Yeah. Well, how did you start out?
So when I graduated, it was right in the middle of the Asian financial crisis.
97?
97. I couldn't get a job in a law firm. It's so bad. I sent out like 80 applications. I didn't get any. So I ended up doing legal editing job at CCH, and then I moved on to another local law firm, a large law firm. They had an opening for knowledge management. Nobody even knew what that was. It's just tried by luck. I said, as long as I get into a law firm, I'm happy. But then eventually I became a HR manager, general manager with that firm. Yeah, was never...
Wait, hold on. But you don't have an HR background, do you?
No, but they said, well, we need you. The HR person resigned. Can you do the job? It's like, yeah.
Okay.
So I did it. I learned everything. Became general manager too. And then there was an opening. A friend of mine said, hey, she knew I always wanted to do IP. So the place she's working had an opening for an associate. And she said, do you want to join? I said, yeah, sure. And I got in. And I was there for 5 years. So that was, and I was in the trademarks department. So that's how I got into trademarks. And they taught me everything I know.
I don't know whether or not in law, in any kind of practice, right, is winning just winning the case. So in a case like this, right, what do you consider as a win and a loss in a case like this? I mean, there are days where you walk away with some money, and there are days where you walk away where they have to pay money. Yeah. But do you still take that as a win or a loss?
For me, the win is when the client says, yes, I want to file my trademark, or yes, I want to protect it. And the win is when you get the registration. So I used to represent, the firm I was with, we had quite big brands with that firm. And one of them was a perfume company. I was handling their portfolio. So every time I went to DFS and I walk at the airport and I see the brand, I was like, hey, I helped to trademark that. You feel good. It's a win for me because it was like, wow, it's something that I helped them to get, or when someone receives a cease and desist letter and we can counter it very well based on the rights of the client. That's a win, right? It's not always about going to court. So IP law, you have legal disputes. There are a lot of patent related disputes, but most of the time these things do get settled,
right?
And that's another win when you settle a matter for your client and they don't have to spend thousands of dollars in legal fees.
Yeah, but what's in it for you? Like, why do you feel so good about IP and trademarks and stuff? Like, tell me more.
I think For me, because it represents the identity of the company, and I'm helping them with that process. I'm helping them to achieve recognition, awareness. So, and when they realize the importance of it and what they can do with it, it's fabulous. So there's another recent client I had. They were facing a domain name issue, and you can fight from someone taking your domain name if you have a trademark registration. So in their case, they did have that, but the domain was in someone else's name. So I did advise them, try to get it back from that person if you can. And they were quoted by an attorney for like more than $5,000. I told them, listen, I'll help you out. They said, look, I can't afford $5,000. I said, okay, I'll help you out. You draft your response to the complaint that you received. I'll review it. I'll charge you $500. And they said, yeah, okay. So I did that. Of course, I spent more time than I anticipated, but they won the case. Why is it important? It's like your domain, your www. You've been using it for a while. Someone's saying you can't use it anymore. It's mine.
Oh yeah.
Right. So then you're like, no, it's mine. But unfortunately, you didn't pay attention. It was not in your company's name. But then if you have the registration, you have rights to it, you can fight it. So why for me is because I feel like I see these wins faster than maybe if you're in criminal law, family law. Family law is a bit sad, divorces and custody
I've
battles.
never heard of a happy family law case before.
Probate is like, come on. What are you doing with wills and probate? Okay, and then you have criminal law. Seriously, in Singapore, I mean, I don't think that, I don't see myself as a criminal defense attorney. I don't think I have that caliber in me. Corporate law is a lot of late nights. Due diligence, mergers, acquisitions. You need to have this oomph to be a corporate lawyer, okay? Banking law as well. I'm not a bankruptcy lawyer either, right? So I find trademarks, IP, just so interesting, and just so it's all around me. Brands, trademarks, IP, anything creative. What you're doing today, it's IP. There's creative aspects to it, right? So it's I just naturally gravitated to it.
Right. Do you ever think that it's because you're helping the smaller guy kind of thing?
Yeah, on some level I am, because I myself am a small business. And being so there are many of us out there who can do the job. It's not that you can't go to any law firm who has an IP department or a trademark firm to do this.
Did you trademark your stuff by any chance?
I have trademarked my slogan.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. That would have been awkward if you said no.
Yeah, I have. So, interestingly, it's just as a lawyer, I mean, I know people are afraid of this word, lawyers, hourly rates, but it's not necessarily so. I think you just have to find one that connects with your business properly, and I am trying to achieve that. It's not all about the bottom dollar. It's important, but it's not all about that. With small businesses, it can't be about that. It has to be more than that.
At the end of the show, we always have a quick fire round of 10 questions so that everybody can get to know you as fast as possible. Okay. Kiran, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so question number 1. Give me one word that you love the most.
Passionate.
One word that you dislike very much.
Judgmental.
If you could have a conversation with one person, fictional, non-fictional, dead or alive, who would that be?
Gandhi.
Mahatma or Indrani?
Mahatma.
Just check. Hey, look. Assuming all Gandhis are the same? How dare you?
Good point.
Okay. Now, what do you say to yourself in the mirror every morning?
What happened to my hair?
All right. Name one superpower that you'd like to have.
Being able to instantly shrink in size.
You want rapid weight loss?
Yeah. X-Men style.
Just go.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, favorite dish to eat?
Chicken rice.
Favorite travel spot or the next travel spot you want to go to?
Norway.
Something in the arts that you've always wanted to do but yet to do so?
Sing.
What does retirement look like to you?
Far away. Many years to go.
How do you want to be remembered? What's your legacy?
Remembered for my laughter and my easygoing nature, and legacy, I think just being helpful.
All right, so that's 10 questions. Thank you so much for doing this with me. And at the same time, I'm sure that a lot of people will also be looking out for you for trademark law or any kind of connection whatsoever. So cameras over there, feel free to just connect with them. Whoever, how can they connect with you?
If you have any burning questions about trademark law or just IP in general, you can email me at Kiran at ipconsultants.asia, or you can visit my website www.ipconsultants.asia, and there are different ways in which you can contact me. So,
all right, that's the end of the podcast.
Thank you.
All right,
I had fun.
Thanks for being here.
Of course. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right, bye everyone. Bye.
Bye.